Happy writing, boys and girls. Today is writing time. This week, after you've listened to the story about Daddy's truck, you're going to get to write your own version of different things that take you from place to place. In your book, you're going to be writing about 3 different ways that you can travel. Now, there's a lot of different ways out there to travel. For example, and I'm going to share some of the things that I've collected from my grandchildren's toys. You could choose to go by boat. And how does this one move? You'll remember that for when you're writing. Or maybe you have one of these that you ride on. Your 4-wheelers. Maybe you've traveled by train. Maybe you've had an accident and had to go by ambulance to somewhere. Or maybe you've taken a trip where instead of going on the road, you went in the air with an airplane. So when you go to write your transportation, remember all these different means of transportation. And when you write about it, make sure that you tell us, how does it move? Describe how it's made. What makes it move? You could write about your bicycle. You could write about your skateboard. Or maybe you'd like to tell us about Grandpa's truck, Mom's car, a train ride, or a plane ride. But you can only pick 3, and I know there's so many out there. And this week, what I want you to focus on is to make sure that what you're writing makes sense, and here's our strong point, and is readable. Now, for example, if I were to write, and I'm going to take my writing paper down for just a moment. If I were to write this sentence, I want you to look and think, is it readable? Can you understand it? Does it make sense? Now, if I write, I dog see. Does that sentence make sense? Is it readable? I dog see. No, that's not the way we should write it. You could say, I see a dog. Now, is that readable? Does that make sense? It does. And so when you write, when you're starting to do your draft on the first few days, and then you go back and revisit, reread what you wrote. If you found you forgot something, put it in. If you found you made a mistake, either erase it or just cross it out and start again. But make sure when you're writing today that your writing is readable and that what you wrote makes sense. Because I dog see, that doesn't really make sense, does it? Not at all. But when we go to write this time, make sure that you tell us what mode of transportation, and in your picture box, you're going to draw a picture of it. Now, if I were to draw my boat, I'd have to make sure that there's water. But I'd want to say this is the front, this is the back, the stern. If I were going to be drawing a train, this is the track, these are the wheels. Make sure that you put labels on your pictures on what it is you've drawn, because sometimes that helps people understand what you're talking about. Now, if I were to write about this particular boat, what would you notice about it? What would you say about it? would you say this, and we know that word, boat, has sails. Say it slowly. Sails. We said it slowly. We stretched it out. Sails. See? Sails. And why do we need this? Because how many sails does it have? 1, 2. If it only had one, I'd have to say this boat has a sail. But this one has 2 sails. Now that's the end of my first sentence. How does that boat move? Well, the wind. Remember your spaces. The wind. It. Ooh, let's try this one. Well, that one's kind of tricky. There's that M. Ooh, well, see, that's actually the O. And that's the end of that thought. So what do I put? A period. This boat has sails. The wind makes, oops, sorry, so you can see it, makes it move. Now you have more lines on your paper, but when I blow it up like this, it doesn't give me enough space. Then when you go to draw it, make sure that you put what this is. This is the sails. And then you need the mask, and then you need the boat. And if you notice, my boat has points here and here. And this is a different color than the bottom. Now, up where I go for the summer, there are a lot of sailboats. This has in here where the people would sit to steer it. And then, of course, yes, I'm going to have to draw the water that it's in. And remember, you could make that, oh, they've got some pretty colored ones. So when you go to do your drawing, say, this is the mask. Mask. This is the front of the boat. This is the back of the boat. And this is the flag that the boat sails on the top. So when you go to draw, you need to draw and label your picture. And of course, color it in. Right now, my crayons are kind of yucky, so I'm doing it with my marker. But when I would do it again, I'd make sure the water was blue. If you're traveling by an airplane, make sure you put a couple clouds up there too. And don't forget details, spaces. Make sure that your sentence makes sense. It ends with a period, begins with a capital, and there are spaces between each word as you write. Make sure when you're writing that it is readable. And the best way to make sure it's readable is once you write it today, read it tomorrow. Does it make sense? Does it sound right? You may not